Hello, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Mad Red United. Welcome to the Friday Live show. Tonight, we're going a little bit different. We're delving into the world of football finance tonight. And I've got alongside me, thank you so much for coming on. It's a pleasure to have you on, Kieran Maguire from the Price of Football podcast and website. Thank you very much for coming on, Kieran. How are you, my friend?
I'm sound. Looking forward to this. Should be good fun.
Yes, looking forward to it. So, how long has your website actually been going on now and your podcast, Kieran?
The website's been sort of knocking around for 4 or 5 years, sort of a stop and a start, the way you tend to do with things. But we started the podcast on the back of Bury getting kicked out of the league. So we started last September. So we're just coming up for 1 year now. So I do it with comedian Kevin Day, who's brilliant. You know, he asks the questions that we all ask in the pub, and he does it very well.
In a comedian way, yeah, they're the best at it. So yeah, I mean, in terms of football finance, obviously there's certain times of the season, there's certain times of the year where this comes out more, and fans want to know more about certain things. But have you found yourself that football finance is taking more of a centre stage with a lot of fans and fan groups now? Do people want to know more about the sort of things that you talk about?
Yeah, unfortunately they do, because we've seen what's happened with, you think about Sheffield Wednesday and Derby, they were up on charges. Of course, the City case, that was big. We saw Macclesfield getting kicked out of the league effectively for not paying the wages. And there's clubs around at present, such as Charlton and Sunderland and Newcastle, where they all hate the owners, probably just as much as you hate yours. There's a genuine chance of clubs going out of business. So we started off doing one 20-minute show a week, and now we're doing 2 shows of about an hour a week.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? I mean, you touched on Charlton there. I mean, the pictures of the fans getting into the boardroom, and this, we have got it. We think we have got it bad, but we've got nothing compared to the likes of what Bolton went through, and obviously down the road from me in Bury. So really, we're not talking on the same level as them clubs, because Bury haven't got a club to watch anymore. Now we're talking about Bolton lining up alongside some team in the 4th tier of English football. So a fall from grace, you could say. So really, United, well, at least we've got Champions League football coming in. We'll delve into that in a minute. But I mean, talking about United, obviously this is a United fan channel. The main topic is going to be regarding United's finances. You're well up on all the financial side of things, Kieran. I mean, United right now, I think we're all interested to know how we sort of break through this COVID. We want to know, are we going to sign? Are we going to break our transfer record for Jadon Sancho in the middle of a pandemic and the recession? But it is one of them scenarios now where all the fans are looking at it and sort of hoping that business can carry on as normal. But surely that there has to be a sort of limit to how United can go about their business as normal. I mean, people talk about net spend all the time about United, but right now, are United in any sort of positions going forward to really invest heavily in our squad?
They're in a position to invest in the squad. A lot depends on what you mean by heavily. Because
I mean, we're talking, the topic on everyone's lips is obviously Jadon Sancho, and we know that will be a club record signing for us. But how can a club record signing take place when there's so much going on in the world in terms of everyone struggling financially? I think that's the big question.
Well, if you look at it from United's point of view, every match that takes place at Old Trafford, which is taking place behind closed doors, is effectively £4 million of lost income. So if you think about the back end of last season, probably 7 or 8 games, so that was 30 million. Then they had to give, they're going to have to be hit by the TV deal. That was 300 million split between 20 clubs. That's another 15. We've just seen the Chinese TV deal collapse. That's going to cost United another 9 million. And you start to add these things up, and then you start to push them forwards. And I think your viewers know that I'm not a United fan, but I've lived in Manchester most of my life, and I know that Manchester United is one of the biggest employers, private sector employers in Manchester, and they're one of the very few employers not to have used the furlough scheme. Yeah. So You've got to ask yourself as fans, where are the priorities? Is it preserving jobs for working class lads and lasses from Manchester, or is it going out and breaking the transfer record? And I think to date, I'd say United have been one of the best clubs in terms of the way that they've handled themselves during the pandemic. But that does come at a price, and that comes at a price of they've paid out all the things they must pay out. Transfer spend, that's a bit of a luxury, that they've signed for 40 million. Manchester United have got a 25 million pound a month pay packet to find, and there's not a huge. There's no money coming in through the turnstiles. There is money coming in from the sponsors. There is money coming in from TV. So they're not skint, but they are being cautious, because you and I don't know whether we're going to have this conversation in 12 months' time on the back of United not having played a match in front of 76,000.
Yeah, that's it. I think there are projected sort of plans for October time to start getting some fans back in the stadiums. I know that still is, well, it all depends on how the coronavirus goes, vaccines, so on and so forth, in terms of getting what's really important. But like you said there, you touched on it there, I don't think any hardened critic of the way United run their business would even blink an eye of how well we have dealt with the pandemic. I mean, I've said it quite frequently through the pandemic. A lot of other people have said it as well, that United, and you just said it then, Kieran, have dealt with the whole situation of lockdown really well. All the staff have still got the jobs. And like you said there, what is important to the fans? Do we want the local people, the ones who are, well, in need of that work at United, or do we want to see millions spent? And I think the prime example probably was Arsenal in terms of what they did with sacking a load of their staff, to say that they're looking to invest into the club and go forward that way. I mean, am I right in thinking that what they got in terms of prize money for the FA Cup was pretty much similar to what they would have saved from getting rid of the staff that they got rid of from inside the club? Is that about right, Kieran?
Yeah, it's about an extra 1.8 million. But more importantly, it meant that they qualified for the Europa League, which is worth 30 million. Now they've got rid of 55 staff. So, they could have let them go slowly, but to do that 2 or 3 days after the FA Cup final just shows that some football clubs, they live in a vacuum, the people that run them. Arsenal are run by a billionaire. He could have kept those people on for another 6 months just to see, perhaps by the end of this year, by the end of 2020, we might have made some progress in terms of playing matches in front of, initially I think you'll be looking to get 20 to 25,000 at Old Trafford, but ideally by the end of the season that will be doubled or more. The same for Arsenal. You would have thought that they could have waited, but it seemed it was a poorly managed decision. And then of course they go and sign Willian a couple of days later as well, and he's on 200 grand a week.
I know that really doesn't sit well at all. In terms of, we touched on just before we went into the Arsenal there, and I think Tim as well. You spoke to Tim online, but Tim picks up the point in terms of the 140 million revolving credit that United have got. I mean, could you just explain how that works? Because a lot of fans would look at that and go, well, if we've borrowed 140 million to cover running costs of the football club, does that mean that we can still spend what we normally spend in the transfer window? I mean, the revolving side of that loan probably stands out more than anything. Is that like, would I be thinking like similar to a top-up loan that gets reviewed? Is it an ongoing credit that can be and will probably be there for a long time to come?
It's effectively an overdraft, Adam. So if you go to your bank manager and he says, right, I'm going to give you a 5 grand overdraft, it doesn't mean that you take out 5 grand immediately. So the way that football works in terms of the money coming in, that you get, normally you get a big amount of cash coming in at the end of the previous season. So that'll be, the end of July. And that comes from the broadcasters. Then they don't pay anything again till about December, and then you get a top up at the end of the season based on the number of times you've been on TV in your final league position. So you get money coming in 3 times a year from TV. In effect, you get most of the money from your sponsors at the start of the year and a couple of top-ups, and you get all the money from the season ticket fans coming in quite early as well.
Yeah.
And then for the rest of the year, there's nothing coming in. So football is very lumpy. Money coming in 2 or 3 times a year, but there's money going out every single week, every single month. You've got to pay the stewards, you've got to pay the staff. So what United did, that they did their sums, and they said, well, potentially in October and November, those could be bad months for the club. In terms of lots of money going out, not a lot of money coming in. We're waiting for the next payment to come in from the broadcasters. So it's literally just like me and you go into our bank man and say, look, I need an overdraft. I don't need it for 12 months of the year, but there's going to be times when I need to dip into it. So it's not an extra £140 million, which immediately goes into the club's bank account. It's just like having an overdraft facility at your regular bank.
It's there to take out when needed and so on going forward to cover, like you said then. No, totally get that. That's what that is. See, a lot of fans would just look at that and go, 140 million. Okay, that's covered that side of it. So why are we looking at it and not using that normal finances to spend money on players? But a lot of fans bring up the conversation of net spend. And I remember you listening to you with Phil Brown talking about net spend being totally irrelevant for 1 year. It's not even worth looking into. You look at it over a number of years. A lot of United fans would say, well, over the last few years, our net spend has been around 60 or 70 million. Is this the sort of change in tack now from United in terms of how we're looking to actually spend money, especially when we're investing in the squad? Is this sort of like us trying to turn a corner from the mess that we probably have put ourselves in since Ferguson left? I mean, I remember you stating, I think it was 1.2 billion has been spent on players by United since Sir Alex Ferguson left. And let's be honest, we're not really in a position or have been in any sort of position challenging for top honours. So are United that far behind now in terms of finances and mistakes we've made with previous managers to a point where net spend is going to be around about 60, 70 million every year just to try and catch up with new tactics and strategy?
Well, I mean, if you take a look at the 7 years before Sir Alex retired, the net spend in that period was 224. 7 years since he's left, it's 870. So the money, as you rightly said, Adam, it has been spent. United's average net spend has been well over £100 million a year. So regardless of what you think of the Glazers, they have backed 3-4 managers now. It's just that the decisions that have been made and the quality of those decisions, I think, especially as you sort of are inferring in the early years post Sir Alex, the quality of the decisions weren't very good. And if you waste money, just take a look at Barcelona, Dembele, Coutinho, Griezmann, 400 million quid on those 3 players, and they've all turned out to be duds. So I think it's one thing to look at the spend. Yes, it has been there. I think United are probably second only to City as far as net spend is concerned during that period. Because although Chelsea have spent a lot, Chelsea sell a huge number of players.
Yeah.
So their net over that period isn't as big as United's. It's a quality issue rather than a quantity issue. My understanding is that United have sort of realised that there have been issues in terms of the way that they have been spending the money, and therefore they've gone into more of a Moneyball approach, making sure that they actually examine the metrics of the players and all of the dull stuff to ensure that the money's not being wasted in the way perhaps it has done historically.
Yeah, so point in case really there would be Ole Solskjaer saying we scouted Bruno Fernandes for months and months and months on end. They're trying to put the whole package into place. I look at some of United's transfers now and go, the player has to sort of meet all levels. Like you said, Moneyball, the player has to have some form of sell-on available value. The player has to be the right age. He has to appeal sort of in a marketing way as well for United, it would seem. I mean, I don't know if this rolls into the Sancho deal or what's going on with this one, but there does seem to be now, since Solskjaer especially has come in, there seems to be a new way that we're looking at transfers. I don't think any fan would argue with the signings that Ollie has made. They have been bad signings. I think the signings that we have made have been the right signings for the club. But financially, I do feel like we're paying the right amounts of money. You could maybe argue Harry Maguire was over the top spend. I think I heard you talking with Phil regarding Harry Maguire as well, that this was one deal that United could not sort of scatter the payments on. They couldn't make instalments on this one. Leicester were very, very firm in their stance about Harry Maguire. Is this why United sort of look to have spent so much on Maguire? Is this where we're sort of trying to, I don't know how to say it. It's like we're catching up from that one, because that's a deal that we probably wanted to make happen, but not on Leicester's terms. But we've ended up paying such a big fee up front for Harry Maguire that it sort of rolls into the next year's spend as such.
A little bit. I mean, you always look at your spend over sort of a 3 or 4 year rolling period. Harry Maguire is a good player. Did United pay perhaps a little bit too much? It could be argued that they did, but there were other clubs interested. And I think that's something that was critical. And Leicester played United off against City very well. Mm-hmm. And United felt that they had to get the player. And therefore, on the back of that, they paid the asking price, and they paid the asking price straight up. United still have cash in the bank. So, you know, if you do look at the numbers as far as the accounts are concerned, United's cash balance is one of the biggest in football. But it's come down quite a bit as well, mainly because it was 80 million for Harry Maguire. As far as Wan-Bissaka was concerned, Palace wanted 50% up front, which they got, and then United have just paid the second 50% last month. So yeah, that's another 20 million quid going out when money's not coming in. And I think fans ought to be, just aware of that since Sir Alex retired, what United's strategy was. Yes, they've spent a lot of money, but the players in the main were being bought on credit. So by the time we got to the summer of 2018, United owed over £250 million in outstanding fees to other clubs, the players that they bought. And I think to a certain extent, that's why the board turned round to Mourinho and said, we're not going to spend crazily this year because we need to start paying off some of our old debts. It's a bit like if you or me, we go a bit crazy with the credit card on holiday, and we come back and we think, right, well, I'm not going out for the next 3 weeks because I can't afford to do so. I need to go and pay this back. So United did back the managers, but they backed them on credit rather than cash all the time. And things, if you are buying on credit, it comes back to bite you on the bum at some point. Yes. That really hit United in the summer of 2018. That they got their creditors down quite considerably, which allowed Ollie to then go out and spend more money last summer. This year, United, if United don't have matches taking place before a paying audience, that costs Manchester United over £100 million, and that's before the sponsors and the broadcasters start chipping away as well. Yeah, I mean, going forward in terms of our new strategy, I mean, there are other clubs who I see, looks from the outside, with not being an expert, who look like they've got it down to a T in how they run, how they make the transfers. You talked about Chelsea there. There seems to be no messing with Chelsea when it comes to a transfer. They seem to be in for a player, and the player is signed, sealed, and delivered. Where I know United get brandished around the tabloids when the player linked with United, it always gets built up to be some big thing. But Chelsea seem to just have it where you talked about them selling some of their assets as well to balance the books well. And we all know there's a lot of Morata and Hazard money in there, to why they've gone out and spent so much this summer, and they didn't spend anything, obviously, in the last 2 windows because of the ban. So they had a lot more money to spend. But it just seems that, and I'll ask you now, would you think, and a lot of United fans would ask this question as well, because it gets brought up a lot for us. I think we're one of maybe 2 or 3 clubs in the league that don't have a director of football. Would this help United, in your opinion, in terms of having a director of football, in terms of making the transfers go a little bit more smoothly? Because we seem to be the only club or big club that doesn't have this structure behind the scenes when it comes to transfers.
and dealing with players. I know we have Ed Woodward, who makes a lot of money commercially and everything, like we all know, and we can all see the numbers when they get announced, and it all looks great on that side of things. But obviously fans want to see players, and we want to know, obviously, why we haven't followed the mold of other successful clubs that are doing a lot better than us now in bringing in a director of football. Do you think, in your opinion, that a director of football would help United?
In my view, yes. In terms of United are a huge business, and therefore, if you've got a board of directors who are not in themselves got a foot in both the football camp and the business camp, it makes it more difficult. Ed Woodward has generated an awful lot of money on the commercial side. He's, he works extremely hard, but he's not football himself. He doesn't have that experience, and therefore, if you take a look at those clubs that have been successful, and I know it's a dirty word, but just look what Liverpool have done by having a director of football, having a Moneyball approach. City have got something similar. Chelsea have got something similar in terms of the way that they try to develop. And that makes a difference, because if the manager doesn't work out, if you have a philosophy at the club which runs from the under nines all the way through to the first team, eventually that will start to reap benefits. Now, you could easily argue from United's point of view, well, hold on, we've got Marcus Rashford, we've got Mason Greenwood, we've got other players who potentially are going to come through as well. We've actually got a very good production line. That's not the problem. But if you have a philosophy of football, which normally the director of football deals with, and he's sort of the centre around which sort of the other parts, the coaches, the managers, the academy, they all sort of rotate around him, then that can work very successfully. It does seem to be a model which certainly has worked for both City and Liverpool.
Yeah, because I think City have two director of footballs. I think they brought the whole team to work around Pep Guardiola. I think this is where United went wrong from the start when Ed Woodward came in, Alex Ferguson left, David Gill left. I think we didn't sort of back our manager in terms of his team and providing them with with everything that they needed to run such a massive outfit like Manchester United are. And it just looks like when Pep came in, his whole team came in, the structure behind him upstairs, everything was on with what Pep wanted. The same has gone with Liverpool, like you said. Now everything is there, geared towards the manager and what the manager needs. I know Klopp is talking now that he's probably got another 20 million left to spend in this window. And it's just looking like Liverpool are being extra careful with what they do in the transfer window this summer, especially with what's gone on. If United do go out and try and catch up to the likes of City, you could say Chelsea, what they've spent, and Liverpool, is there a case now that we could really put ourselves in more trouble if we go chasing it? Or, in your opinion, are we pretty solid right now financially? Because a lot of United fans, I've seen a few come up in the comments saying, I'm loving the show, but it's depressing me at the state of the football club and how things are going. But financially, United are pretty solid going off figures. Is that correct?
That's right. In their last main balance sheet, they had over 300 million cash in the bank. Now, a lot of that's gone since, because they have been paying down. They have been paying down the transfers. So yeah, United are in a very strong position. As far as the changes at the club, if you look at any business, if you go and change effectively your chief executive and your chairman at the same time, or your main operating man, as United did with David Gill and Sir Alex, it meant that both David Moyes and Ed Woodward were trying to find their feet in their new jobs at the same time. And sometimes you need one to guide the other with their experience. And United suffered as a result of that. Ed Woodward was trying to work out exactly what his roles and responsibilities were in terms of negotiations with other clubs. David Moyes, who'd been used to spending bugger all at Everton, he lived on a shoestring. suddenly, if you go from living in a 2 up, 2 down, and you win the lottery, you don't know how to spend it, and you go and spend it on some daft things, or you think, well, hold on, I need to take a step back. And I think at a club like United, United cannot stand still. United have got to constantly go forwards, given the size of the club and the expectation of the fan base. So they did struggle quite clearly in that first season under David Moyes, and then with Van Gaal, it just didn't work out. You look at the signings such as Di Maria, and they weren't of the standard that you were expecting.
Yeah, exactly that. We all had our moans and groans about that, but I mean, going forward for United, it's obviously coming up for. Well, we're looking at what it's costing us at the moment. Like you said, we're losing 4 to 5 million-ish every league game, but we have got the Champions League football back now, so that is going to bring in a little bit more. And we've got, I think I heard you talking about it with Phil, actually, the small sponsorship deals, which have worth their weight in gold for the club right now in terms of how they're helping out, because the sponsorships always pay up. Did they pay up at the start of every year or every season at a certain same point every time?
Pay a big amount at the start of each season. So you look at United's and it's the biggest in the Premier League, and that's a testament to like them or loathe them, the commercial team. And I know some people who follow United say that sometimes the marketing department's driving the football side of the business, and that's not been positive for the club. But they have delivered in terms of the numbers. I think United will do well if they can match or better the front of shirt sponsorship deal, because the Chevrolet deal expires at the end of 21. Yeah. And clearly it's not a great time to be negotiating, but they're still Manchester United. That they still are one of the top 3 or 4 teams in terms of having a global fan base, and I'm sure that's what the marketing department will be trying to sell.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the situation, will they be looking for probably more short-term sort of deals rather than a long-term? So in case the climate does change and we do get back to some form of normality, will it be maybe not as longer, like 5-year shirt deals like we've had before in the past? Do you think it was shorter-term stuff?
Normally when sponsors come in, they're looking for a long-term commitment, especially if it's a blue chip company. So I think it will be a minimum of 3, and it could be linked to certain things. So it could be more performance related, as far as matches taking place in front of a crowd, progress in the champion. So if United deliver in terms of delivering trophies, and that's what the sponsors want. They want their product sat next to one of United's superstars, next to a big trophy, because it looks good when they're trying to sell it to sell whatever their product is. And if you take a look at the United sponsorship, and I suspect Ed Woodward will regret these words until his dying day, when he said, well, United don't have to win football matches to make money. United's commercial income in the last 4 years, 268, 276, 276, 275, yet they've stopped winning trophies and now they're flatlining. Whereas prior to that, when they were winning trophies on a regular basis, it was just up and up and up. So there is a limit to what sponsors will pay, because they expect something in return, and that's going to be winning a major trophy. And as far as sponsors are concerned, Carabao Cup and Europa League, they're not major trophies.
Yeah, they just don't cut it when it comes to sponsorships at all. I think right now they don't cut it for a lot of the football fans either. I mean, getting on to football matters now, I mean, we're all hopeful that we are going to get fans back in stadiums soon. I know you guys down there, you're a Brighton supporter yourself, Kieran. You tested it out, I think, against Chelsea last weekend. In terms of word coming out of the club, did it all go down well? Did it go out without a glitch? Are we hopeful that we could be possibly moving on to the next stage?
Yeah, it went like clockwork. I mean, the fans bought into it. So I don't want to wear a mask at a football ground. Anybody?
No.
But everybody did. There were some downsides. So you can't sit next to anybody, even if they are family, because otherwise it's impossible to steward. If you think about it, you're going to say, well, he's my brother. How's the steward going to know? So you'll be sitting 3 or 4 seats apart. So there are some downsides, but at least you're getting to see football. It can create a bit of atmosphere, and it's what we as fans, it's what we're committed to. It's not the same watching it on the telly. It's not the same on a stream, and it's certainly not the same watching it on telly when it's behind closed doors. Because I think, to me, the most important people in the game are players and fans, and we've seen what football's like without fans over the course of the last 3 months, and perhaps that will make the people who are in charge of football, and by that I mean the administrators, the governing bodies, and also perhaps some of the owners, realise that actually, as fans, we contribute far more than they previously realised, because if we're not there, it's not the same game.
Yeah, I mean, looking at football now, we'll move away from the financial side of things. In terms of the Premier League going forward, I mean, I always like to get opposite fans' opinions on how our club actually looks from the outside. In terms of, the finances inside out, Kieran, but in terms of what's happening on the pitch right now, I'll just be intrigued to get your opinion on how you see United moving forward on the pitch. Do you see a turnaround in United from what you've seen over the last, we'll say probably this season? It seems to have turned a bit better for us. We got third in the league, but does it look like it is moving in the right direction from the outside?
I think over the past 2 or 3 years, Manchester United have looked like a luxury car where the engine's not, where you got a missing spark plug. And therefore, you're going, well, he's doing okay, but I'm expecting a bit more from that. And it could be that Fernandes is that missing spark plug, because they certainly looked a different team when he arrived. The front three, they look scarily fast. I know when United played at our place and that third goal that you scored, which was from our corner, we were going, Jesus Christ, we're just chasing shadows here. So United have got pace, which defenders don't like. They're reasonably solid in midfield. I think defensively they look a bit vulnerable. I think a second decent centre half and perhaps a better left back, and a defensive midfield player. From Matic is solid. Fred had a good season, but I don't think he's. Again, if you're looking at players who perhaps have United paid a wee bit too much, he could be in that category. So they're certainly better than they were 12 months ago, and that was reflected. United were probably the best team post lockdown, and we don't know what we're going to see from Liverpool or City. Are they going to progress? Liverpool looked a bit hit and miss after lockdown. Now, it could be due to the fact that that they're on holiday. They were by far the best team pre-lockdown, and trying to maintain that was tough. So United should certainly be top 4 next season. I can't see Arsenal or Spurs putting in a meaningful challenge. Could they get into the top 2? I think they could, because City are great going forward, but look vulnerable at the back. Ake, good player, but you look at the number of goals that Bournemouth shipped last season. He's not a clean sheet man. He's a very elegant player. And as I said, Liverpool, they again scarily going forwards. They didn't recruit anybody last season, and they won the Premier League. Can they go 2 years without recruiting someone and still win that trophy? I'm not convinced. So I think United, they won't find it easy, but they could go from third to second, and you never know from there. you keep injury free, you bring through another player from the academy, and then things look quite dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like personally, it's good to actually talk to you on some football as well, actually, Kieran, not just all the financial side of it. I'm sure it's a nice break for you as well. But I see, in terms of clubs, I think this pandemic may have affected financially and in progression. I think Liverpool, to me, don't look like they're as they don't look as scary. I know we can look at it like you just said. Then they were on the beach. Season was pretty much over. But for me, I just don't think that Liverpool, if they cannot spend and improve this team, I think the likes of City will overtake them. I really do. I think we'll close the gap because we're willing to spend some money. But I do feel like Liverpool are 1 or 2 injuries away from really struggling. You take a Salah out of that team. You take a Mane, who's 1 injury. I don't think they've got the cover. And this is where I think Chelsea are spending well at the moment. They're getting rid of the right players, bringing the right players in. Is there any chance that that top 2 could be broke up, in your opinion? What do you think? Is there anyone like a Chelsea? A lot of people are touting Chelsea. I know it all depends on how Lampard can handle this new squad. It's not going to be easy, but I feel like Liverpool, if they don't improve the squad a little bit, then they could be in danger of being caught quickly. I think this season. I don't know what you think about that. How does it look from your side in terms of Liverpool? Because, like I said, a couple of injuries, which nearly every other team in the league got this season, but Liverpool, and it could be going that way for them.
Well, we think in Brighton that we helped Liverpool win the Premier League because when we were being absolutely tatered at the Etihad, for some reason our centre half went on a 40-yard run, and Laporte took him out, and Laporte did his
it was your team. It was your team. He did it and won it.
Yeah, and after that, City were clearly weak in the centre of defence. So and Laporte, I think, is a real class act in the same way of Van Dijk. So if Van Dijk gets a serious injury, you look at Liverpool's centre half pairings, and you've probably got Gomez and somebody else. You think, okay, they're solid enough, but they're not world beaters. And remember, City scored more goals than Liverpool last season, but Liverpool, it was really tough scoring against them. Yeah, they were very good at keeping the clean sheets. And then if you're keeping clean sheets and you've got Mane and Salah and Firmino up front, then the chances are you're going to score a goal. But Liverpool won plenty of matches by a single goal.
That was it. Exactly that. I mean, Ahmed just put in a super chat there asking the question, do United have enough money to buy a centre-back and Sancho? Well, with what Kieran said we had in the bank there are ways around it for United. I think it all comes down to the structure of our transfer deals now. I think Kieran pretty much done it in terms of anyone else we buy, especially this window.
Yeah. I think there's 2 issues. There's a cash issue, and then there's an FFP issue. And remember, United's business model is different. Manchester City and Chelsea are both owned by people who are billionaires who are prepared to just stick money into the club. Now, we know that the Glazer family haven't done that. We know that the shareholders will be taking out 20 million in dividends. We know that the banks will be charging 20 million in interest this year. So that's 40 million quid that's gone out of the bank, which isn't going to be the case for City and Chelsea. So United do have some costs which other clubs don't bear. Could they do it? I think it's not just the wage bill. You sign a player for 110 million, and his agent saying, well, he's on a 5 or 6 year deal. We want another 100 million to go on during that period as well. And it's the total cost. It's not just the transfer fee. That's why United were able to sign Ibrahimovic so easily, because they look at it for 1 year. It's just a wage cost, and there wasn't an amount going to another club at the same time. So a lot will depend on wages and the club that's potentially selling. Now, Dortmund whilst Dortmund lost 40 million euro last year, that they are in the Champions League this year, and all the 4 or 5 years prior to that, they've made a profit. So again, people are focusing on one bad year, but whenever you look at a business, you look at over a longer period of time and say, well, they were hit by COVID just like everybody else.
Yeah, true. I mean, looking at a couple of things that have probably interested you actually in the news recently. I mean, I don't know if you've seen the Messi news drop not too long before we went on air, actually, Kieran, but I don't know how you've seen that going down. And obviously, the internet's just had a bit of a spaz out. Is everyone there with me?
Yeah,
I don't know if I'm still live or not.
Yeah.
Yes.
In respect of Messi,
I'm going again. I'm flicking out again.
Right. As far as Messi are concerned, nobody's going to pay 700 million euro for a player, especially a player who's 33.
No, I mean, City fans were getting a bit crazy talking about full-on structure. Yeah, I know that definitely. I mean, United fans, we got the news obviously today regarding Sanchez coming out, spitting his dummy out again, which is typical of a player who never done well. But like you said then, talking about wages, do you think unless things get back to normal, are clubs going to have to sort of structure their wages a little bit differently as well, Kieran, in terms of how they sort of look at bonuses? Because United players are obviously going to be on a little bit of a different wage structure now we're in the Champions League. So does that affect will this pandemic actually affect clubs in terms of the wages? Is this why transfers for United especially are not going or being done so quickly? Are wages part of the issue in terms of the transfers going forward?
Well, what Ed Woodward and his team will look at is the total cost to United over the course of the next 12 months. And they will say, we've got worst case scenario, we're not going to get more than 20% of people in the grounds for half a season. Best case scenario, 30% for 3 months and 50% or 70% for the final half of the season. And they'll have done their sums. In terms of contracts are watertight. So unless a club can persuade the players, and Barcelona managed to persuade their team to give up some of their salaries on the grounds that it would protect jobs elsewhere at the club, and fair play that the players bought into that. Arsenal players took a pay cut, and I think the Arsenal players were really hacked off because they thought that they were protecting jobs, and clearly that hasn't been the case. So you've got to look at things of that nature, and it could be that the United squad are saying, well, we might have been willing to be a bit more flexible, but we see the banks have taken out £800 million plus in interest charges. That's not paying back the loans. 800 million quid in interest charges since the Glazers took over. If the Glazers are happy to pay banks that type of money, why should we sacrifice? Because the banks aren't going to reduce their interest rates they charge to United on the loans just because there's a pandemic. So why should the players give up some of their money, which they're entitled to? I don't go along to see Mr. Tompkins from the HSBC just because he's the local branch manager for United. If I'm a Red, I go along to go and see the players.
Exactly that. Well, I think we've covered pretty much everything going forward. My internet is starting to trip on me, as sometimes it always does when I've got a decent video going on. But I'm just going to wrap the video up there, people. I was going to get onto a couple other things, but I can't judge my my internet at the moment. I've got to go and sort that out. But I just want to thank Kieran for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on with all your in-depth analysis and everything going. Please do check out Kieran's podcast. Do check out his website as well, and he is on Twitter also as well under the Price of Football. And I was fascinated by that Crystal Palace financial figures you put out the other day as well, Kieran. That I was glued to that because I'm a business owner myself. It was just it was crazy, incredible how a business like a football club is run and how the directors and everyone gets the bonuses and everything like that. So everyone do check out Kieran's website. Do check out his podcast, obviously, as well. He's a man in the know. And Kieran, I just want to thank you again for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on, my friend.
Well, thanks very much, Adam, and hope you have a good season. And I hope you get to see United, because that's what we're all here for. It doesn't matter what the club is; it's your local club. Give it your full support.
Definitely. Everyone, thank you for staying with us through that bit of a trip of internet failure on my part there. Do give the video a like, share the video, give the channel a subscription as well while you're at it if you are watching for the first time. I've got more content coming up over the weekend as we edge closer to the season starting. Do stay tuned. Thanks you again, everybody, for tuning in. Everyone who's super chat and left comments, as always. I will get back to as many questions as I can once the video is up on YouTube, as always. But there is a lot more going on as well this weekend. Do stay tuned. We'll be back on Sunday for the live show with a few more guests, a few more people you may actually recognise as well. I think we'll have Owen back on as well. So do stay tuned for that. I will see you over the weekend, people. Take care. Take it easy. Have a safe one. Bye-bye.